Hey everybody, Hunter Ingram here. I am a reporter with the Star News. If you don't follow the Star News particularly every day, or if you might have noticed my byline, I actually cover local history for the newspaper. And today is a pretty big day for local history here in Wilmington. What you're looking at right now is the intersection of 3rd and Market Streets. And what I'm pointing it at is what used to be a very tall statue of George Davis, who was the Attorney General for the Confederate States of America in this area during the Civil War. Overnight last night, the City of Wilmington, in order to minimize the number of onlookers and protect the safety of the public, overnight they took down this monument with another monument that I'm going to show you in a few minutes. They took them down after repeated calls from people in the community to take them down because they were celebrating the Confederacy. That was the charge that people who wanted them to be removed leveled at the city and asked them to take them down. Well, it happened last night for those who were looking for it. So this is the George Davis Monument. Again, it is at the corner of 3rd and Market Streets. It's very busy. It's also very rainy, so I apologize if there are any droplets of rain on the screen. But again, this is the George Davis Monument. Now, you can see the base is still there. That is the same case with someone else. The Confederate monument that I'm going to show you here at 3rd and Dock Streets. They kept the actual bases up, and I don't know the particular reason for that yet. I have asked several questions of the city this morning, but I have been told by at least a few council members that one of the reasons for this was because they felt it was in the public interest to take them down. There was a concern about public safety after they established a curfew around them, after there was fear of violence that might erupt around them, as has been seen around Confederate monuments all over the state and the country. And so I am standing here at this one. This is the George Davis Monument. And again, this was taken down overnight last night, and it's gone. It was put here in 1911, if I remember my history correctly. And it has been standing here. It was erected by the United Daughters of the Confederacy in the memory of George Davis, who again was the Attorney General of the Confederate States of America. And that is what people took issue with, that it was a very prominent space for a monument that is honoring and commemorating a man who was part of the Confederate States of America. And that was the charge that they leveled at these monuments, and has been leveled at monuments across the state and the country. Now, I'm going to walk you up. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to walk you up what is 3rd Street, and we are going to go look at the other monument that was taken down overnight last night. Now, I am, for those who don't know, here at the newspaper, I host a podcast about local history. So I write a lot about local history, and it's interesting to see this particular moment in local history kind of unfolding in front of our eyes. But what I've learned this morning from the city council and from the city council that I've been able to get in touch with is that they made this decision and voted unanimously at the end of a closed session at this week's meeting. And they were told that the overnight removal was an option, and that they were notified after it was done by email this morning once the crews had removed the statues. Now, what you're looking at is the other Confederate monument that was removed in the wee hours of this morning. It is actually sorry, I'm out of breath. It is actually a memorial to Confederate soldiers who lived in New Hanover County who died and fought in the Civil War. Now, as you notice, just with as with the George Davis statue, they didn't take down the base. They only took down the actual statue itself. What is going to happen to the bases, we don't know, because it sounds like, from what I've heard this morning from City Council, that they have not made a decision on what is going to happen to these statues. They are being held in a quote-unquote undisclosed location, intended to protect them from being damaged while they are not on these bases. This particular monument was put up in 1924, again by the United Daughters of the Confederacy, and it is to the New Hanover County soldiers who fought in the Confederacy. Now, as you'll notice, these statues have been up for, in the case of George Davis, over a century. This is actually, this one's not a century old yet, 1924. It's a few years shy of a century. But you can see how long these things have been standing up, that there is an actual, there's an actual outline of what the actual statue was kind of holding its place on there. You can see it outlined in some of what looks like kind of, I don't want to call it mold, but just wear and tear, because these statues have been up so long. And I think that's a good reminder that a lot of the charges and a lot of the criticism against these monuments is that they were put up a long time ago. They were put up within a century after the Confederate States of America was a thing during the Civil War. And you can see that people are actually stopping and taking pictures. This morning I've seen a few people, no one particularly wanted to talk, but there's a few people who came out here to take photos. A few people hadn't even heard about what had happened, because this happened so quickly overnight that I think people are still trying to kind of wrap their heads around that this action was taken. But again, this is, and you can see just how prominent this monument is in downtown Wilmington. And that is another reason that people were, and as you can see, someone else is about to take a photo of the monuments here. But it's definitely a really important day here in Wilmington, whether you wanted the monuments to be taken down or you did want them to be taken down. That action has happened. It is a particularly surprising move, considering how quietly it was done overnight. And if you go to the starnewsonline.com right now, you can read a story that I wrote and my colleague John Staten wrote, who was out here very early this morning to get pictures of these statues after they had been taken down. And you can read more about what some of the city councilmen say about this particular action. Kevin Spears, who is a councilman, said that he was in support of it. They were all in support of it because it was voted unanimously. But he said that he was in support of it because he felt like it was a step in the right direction for the city. And from what I can tell, a lot of the support has been to put these statues in museums. And I'm actually going to walk across the street to show you this particular monument, just because it was safe now. But you can actually see that this is gone. It was taken down this morning, and it's been there long enough that it has left an impression on the actual stone base here. And it's still wrapped in construction tape, just to be safe. But it has been taken down. And for those who wanted to see this is a real victory. But for those who really wanted to keep the statues up, it's something that I think will be a much larger conversation about what happens to these statues now that they are down. Now, I will say that you're welcome, Paul, and I miss you, buddy. So I will say that these monuments, there's a lot of options of where they could go. You see a lot of different things across the state that could be an option. I personally am from Salisbury, North Carolina, and they voted to take down a Confederate monument that is publicly displayed in that town last week, and they are going to put it in a city-run cemetery where there are graves to Confederate soldiers. Now, the city has not said anything about specific plans, but a lot of people have said they want to see it in a museum where they could provide historical context for not only the Confederacy and the Civil War, but also the history of these statues in particular. Who put them up? where the money came from and what they were intended to acknowledge for the people who were driving by them and walking by them and riding horse and buggy by them when they were actually put up. Another option that people have reached out and said they would like to see is them put at Fort Fisher, which was a Confederate monument, which was a Confederate fort in the Civil War. Now, I personally reached out to the Cape Fear Museum and Fort Fisher earlier this week, and they both said that they had not been contacted by the City of Wilmington to talk about the possibility of putting Confederate monuments at either of those sites, in the museum or Fort Fisher. Now, I'm going to actually walk us back down to the George Davis statue before I end this broadcast. But so the Cape Fear Museum and Fort Fisher, as of Tuesday at least, had not had a discussion or been contacted by the city to be possible sites where these Confederate monuments go. Right before I came on the air or on this Facebook Live, I talked to Kevin O'Grady, who is a councilman here in Wilmington, and he said that they hopefully, by taking them down, they can mitigate any possible injury to the public. But they were going to wait until things calmed down to see what they could do with them. So that means that the city is still exploring its options as to where these could go. Like I mentioned, after they were taken down last night, they were taken to a quote-unquote undisclosed location. And so we do not know where they are being held, but they are these two statues, as I've mentioned now repeatedly. Sorry for repeating myself so much. That these two statues, the George Davis one and then the Confederate Memorial at 3rd and Dock that I just showed you, they have been removed. And I'm gonna, before I close out this, I'm gonna show you the George Davis one more time. Again, it is at 3rd and Market Streets, and it has been removed. The statue has been removed. The platform that still says George Davis and has the inscription that so many people have referenced over the past couple of days, it is still there. So over the next couple of days, please check back to the Star News. I will be covering all of the developments with these and see where this takes us, where these monuments could go, and what the future of them will be. But again, history definitely made here in Wilmington today by the removal of these statues, the Confederate monuments in downtown Wilmington. The two of them, the George Davis statue at 3rd and Market Streets, which is where we are right now, and the Confederate Memorial at 3rd and Dock Streets. Again, please go to thestarnewsonline.com. You can read my story about it that I worked on with my colleague John Staten. And we're going to be covering it for the next couple of days. So please stay tuned to this very much developing story. It is moving very quickly. Again, these were taken down overnight, so Wilmington definitely woke up this morning to some history having been made. Thanks, everyone, and stay tuned to the Star News.